Summer break had finally arrived, and I was an 18-year-old college freshman living alone in the quiet of our family home. My mother, Elon, was always busy with social engagements, and she had just returned from a quick visit with her sister. My father, a renowned surgeon, was halfway across the globe at a 2-month medical conference in Dubai. My mother was away at a medical conference in Dubai, and the house was mine to enjoy. I felt a sense of liberation as soon as Elon's car rolled out of the driveway. I shed my clothes like a second skin, embracing the freedom of solitude. I gathered my usual supplies, tissues, and lotion, and settled in for an afternoon of self-care. I indulged in a symphony of forbidden pleasure in the quiet confines of my bedroom. Time dissolved into a haze of sensual exploration as I delved into the depths of my own desires. I was completely engrossed, oblivious to the world outside my headphones, creating a cocoon of blissful isolation. I didn't hear the front door creak open or register my mother's unexpected return. Her voice shattered the silence. "Oh my goodness," Sebastian said, his voice full of shock and disbelief. "What are you doing? Stop that right now." Mortification flooded through me as I fumbled to conceal my nakedness. Eleanor's sudden appearance had caught me completely off guard. My mind was reeling as I tried to process the magnitude of my exposure. After an eternity of agonizing silence, I finally found the courage to face her. I found her in the living room. She looked disappointed and a little fascinated. "I'm sorry, Mom," I stammered. My cheeks were burning red. "I didn't know you'd be home so early. It won't happen again. I promise." Eleanor didn't say anything. She looked sad and disapproving. Then she turned and left for the kitchen. The rest of the evening was full of awkward silences and averted gazes. The tension in the air was palpable. It felt like a suffocating blanket that stifled any attempt at conversation. I was eager for the day to end and to escape the suffocating weight of my embarrassment. Despite the mortification, there was a primal urge and a desire to complete what I had started after dinner. I retreated to my room, leaving the door slightly ajar, hoping to hear when Eleanor finished washing the dishes. I thought I was being clever, but my mother had other plans. She had her own plans. The sound of the rushing water masked her approach as she crept towards my room. Her footsteps were silent, and her intentions were unknown. I was completely oblivious to her presence, lost in the world unfolding on my screen, until her voice, soft yet laced with a surprising calmness, broke through my solitary pleasure. "It's okay, Sebastian. Just keep quiet. It's all right." I nearly jumped out of my skin. My heart was pounding as I frantically attempted to close the browser tabs that displayed the explicit content I had been immersed in. Eleanor stepped into the room. She saw the images that still flickered on the monitor. "I just wanted to say that I shouldn't have overreacted earlier," she began. "At your age, this is normal." "I understand, Mom. I'm so sorry," she interrupted, raising a hand to silence me. "I just want to know, how often do you do this? How often do you do this?" I felt embarrassed, but I had to be honest. I replied, "Well, every day, Mom. Sometimes, several times." "How many times is several?" she pressed gently. 3 or 4 times, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, absorbing the information. "Do you have a girlfriend?" she asked. "No," I confessed. "I understand," she said, her voice laced with a mix of understanding and resignation. "You're young and your body has needs. Don't be shy with me about this. If you enjoy it, I don't want to stop you, but I can't very well leave the house 3 or 4 times a day so you can have privacy. Just do what you need to do, and I'll ignore you." "Okay." Before I could respond, she turned and left the room, leaving me utterly bewildered. How had this conversation even happened? It felt surreal, like a scene from a bizarre dream. A few days later, during dinner, Eleanor asked Sebastian, "Did you take care of yourself today?" I nearly choked on my food. "Mom," she said with a hint of amusement, "we agreed that if you wanted to, you shouldn't be shy with me." "Everything's fine." "Yes, I remember." I mumbled, still uncomfortable with this newfound openness. "It's okay, son. Don't worry about it. Let's finish eating." I couldn't believe this was happening. It felt like I had stepped into an alternate reality. After dinner, I went to my room to think about this strange new normal. A few minutes later, Eleanor came into my room wearing her usual house robe. "Come on," she said, with a playful glint in her eyes. "Turn on one of your videos." "Mom, please don't do this," I pleaded, feeling embarrassed. "No," she insisted, her voice firm yet gentle. "We need to move past this awkwardness. Let's watch that video from yesterday," she suggested. "What was it about?" I typed in the search terms and pulled up the video we had accidentally watched together the day before. I turned up the volume and Eleanor did the same. She stood beside me watching with what seemed like genuine interest. Our eyes met briefly and I quickly looked away, focusing intently on the screen. "Go ahead, Sebastian. Do what you normally do," she encouraged. She left the room briefly, returning with another chair. She placed a chair next to mine, and we sat in silence, watching the video together. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "You can do this whenever you want, son. Don't worry about me being home the next morning." I woke up feeling like I'd been to a day's work. Had I actually watched those videos with my mother? The whole situation seemed absurd, yet oddly exciting. Later that day, as I sat at my computer, I heard Eleanor return. I felt bold after grocery shopping, so I decided to test the waters. I pulled up the same video from yesterday and slowly increased the volume, loud enough for it to be heard in the kitchen. The rustling of grocery bags stopped, and a moment later, I heard her footsteps approaching my room. My heart raced as she appeared in the doorway, a small smile on her face. She walked over and gently stroked my head. "Good boy, Sebastian," she said softly. "Go ahead and enjoy yourself with that," she said, leaving my room and leaving the door open. I sat there, both relieved and strangely disappointed. Then I noticed something odd. The apartment had gone completely silent. I was curious, so I crept out of my room to investigate. I found Eleanor's bedroom door closed, which was unusual for this time of day. I stood there wondering what to do next. Then I heard her call from the kitchen. "Lunch is ready. Sebastian, just a minute." I called back. My eyes were still glued to the screen. "Sebastian, everything will get cold," she insisted, eventually coming to drag me away from the computer. Lunch was a quiet affair with minimal conversation. I asked if she had heard from Dad and when he might be coming home. Elon's face fell slightly as she replied that his trip had been extended. She said she missed him, but there was a hint of sadness in her tone despite the events of the previous day. There was still a lingering tension. There was still an awkwardness between us that neither of us knew how to navigate as the day wore on. However, the atmosphere gradually lightened. We managed to engage in a few normal conversations, sharing smiles and laughter. It was a fleeting return to the comfortable familiarity we once shared. That evening, we settled in to watch a couple of episodes of our favorite TV show, Game of Thrones, before retreating to our respective rooms. It was nearing 11 p.m. But I couldn't sleep. I decided to do my nightly ritual, this time on the larger screen in the living room. I had just settled in when Eleanor emerged from her room as if drawn by an invisible force. "Oh, you decided to watch out here?" she asked, settling beside me on the couch. "Next time, call me. I want to watch too." I was surprised by her request. "Well, when I'm home, yes," she replied, matter-of-factly. "Call me and we'll watch together." We sat in silence for a moment, then Eleanor asked, "Do you like her, this actress?" I replied, a bit flustered. "Yeah, Mom," Eleanor said, a hint of laughter in her voice. "She was in yesterday's video too. Can you believe she's 47, 10 years younger than you, but still, she does look great." "I agree," Eleanor said with a chuckle. "She must work out a lot." "Is that a hint?" I grinned, relieved that we could joke about it. Joke about this newfound openness, and suddenly Eleanor stood up. "Where are you going?" I called after her. "I'll be right back," she replied with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. "I have a present for you." I completely forgot about the awkwardness of the situation as she returned. A moment later, her hand was hidden behind her back. I guessed which hand she teased. "Right," I said, playing along. It's my favorite, she said, with a pleased smile, handing me a small package wrapped in a black bag. As I began to open it, she explained, I thought you might find these useful. I don't know, I said. I've never used them myself. Inside the bag was a set of high-quality headphones. I looked up at Eleanor, seeing a satisfied grin on her face. Do you like them? She asked. That's wow, I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. Go ahead and try them on, she encouraged. She encouraged me to try them on as I put on the headphones, testing their sound quality. I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was disappointed that this was all she had gotten me, but another part, a larger part, was touched by her thoughtfulness and acceptance of my habits. But a wave of relief washed over me. It was a thoughtful gesture, a silent acknowledgement of our newfound understanding, a gift that spoke volumes without crossing any forbidden boundaries. Enough for tonight, Eleanor declared, rising from the couch. Time for bed. I'll take care of these, I replied, retreating to the sanctuary of my room. Good night, Sebastian, she called after me, her voice a soft echo in the room. The house was quiet as I lay in bed. My mind was racing, replaying the events of the past few days. My relationship with my mother had undergone a big change. The familiar landscape of our interactions was now a terrain of thrilling uncertainty. I wondered what the coming days would bring. A mix of excitement and apprehension swirled within me. When I woke up in the morning, I was feeling a bit confused. The events of the past few days had changed things a lot between my mother and me. I wasn't sure how to handle this new situation. I went to the kitchen where Eleanor was already making breakfast. She greeted me with a warm smile. Good morning, Sebastian. Did you sleep well? She asked cheerfully. Yeah, thanks, I replied, still feeling a bit awkward from the previous night. The new headphones are great, aren't they? Eleanor nodded, pleased. I'm glad you like them. I thought they might come in handy. We ate breakfast in comfortable silence, the tension from the previous day seemingly as I finished my coffee. Eleanor cleared her throat and her expression turned serious. Sebastian, she began, I've been thinking we should probably establish some ground rules for our new arrangement. A blush crept up my neck, but I nodded, encouraging her to continue. Firstly, she stated, her voice firm yet gentle, let's keep this between us, okay? My dad doesn't need to know about our agreement. I agree, I'm glad she wants to keep it secret. Secondly, if you're going to have sex in the living room, please let me know. I don't want to walk in on you again. Sure, Mom, that's fair. I replied, appreciating her practical approach to the situation. Lastly, she added, if you ever want to talk about anything, and I mean anything, I'm here for you. No judgment. Her words were laced with sincerity, and they touched a chord deep within me. It was a promise of acceptance and an open door to a deeper connection that transcended the traditional boundaries of our mother-son relationship. I nodded. The son-mother relationship was okay. Despite the awkwardness of our situation, I felt affection for Eleanor. She was trying to be supportive and understanding. Over the next few days, we settled into a new rhythm. I continued my usual activities, but now with a newfound sense of freedom. I knew my mother accepted and encouraged my explorations. Eleanor kept her word. She never made me feel ashamed or embarrassed. A week after our initial conversation, I was in the living room watching a video on the big screen. I had warned Eleanor that I might be distracted, but she surprised me by joining me on the couch with a glass of wine. She asked if I would watch with her, and I just shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. We sat in silence for a while, with the only sound coming from the TV. I couldn't help but notice Eleanor's reactions from the corner of my eye. She seemed genuinely interested, occasionally sipping her wine and shifting in her seat. She's quite attractive, Eleanor commented, nodding towards the actress on the screen. What do you like about her? I hesitated, unsure how to answer. Eleanor chuckled. I can see that you know. I used to have. I couldn't help but notice Eleanor's reactions from the corner of my eye. She seemed genuinely interested, occasionally sipping her wine and shifting in her seat. What do you like about her? I asked, unsure how to answer. You still look great, Mom, she replied, feeling a bit awkward. Thank you, I said, feeling a bit flattered. As the video continued, I found myself growing increasingly aroused, despite or perhaps because of Elon's presence. I shifted uncomfortably, trying to hide my reaction. Eleanor noticed my discomfort. "Sebastian, honey, it's okay," she reassured me. "Remember what I said. Don't be shy with me. If you need to take care of things, go ahead." I froze, unsure if I had heard her correctly. "What now?" She nodded, her expression reassuring. "If you want to, I don't mind." In fact, she hesitated, then continued. "I could give you some pointers if you'd like." Her voice trailed off, the implication hanging heavy in the air. My mind reeled at the suggestion. The unexpected offer sent a shockwave through me. This was way beyond anything I'd imagined when we started this new chapter in our relationship. Part of me wanted to run away and hide from the overwhelming awkwardness of the situation, but another part of me, a stronger, more curious part, was intrigued by her offer and drawn to the forbidden thrill of exploring this uncharted territory with my mother. I nodded slowly and whispered, "Okay." Eleanor sat down and put her wine glass down. She turned to face me, her expression a mixture of tenderness and determination. "All right," she began, her voice calm and reassuring. "First things first. Relax. You're too tense. Take a deep breath." I followed her instructions, feeling some of the tension ease from my body. "Good," she continued. "Now, start slow. Don't rush it." Guided by her words, I began to explore my own pleasure, acutely aware of her presence beside me. It was a surreal experience, having my mother guide me through this intensely private act. She guided me through this intensely private act, and I couldn't deny the thrill it ignited within me as I continued. Eleanor offered more suggestions, her voice soft and encouraging. "Sebastian, pay attention to what feels good, vary your rhythm," she murmured. Her words combined with the visual stimulation from the screen and the novelty of the situation quickly heightened my arousal, pushing me towards the edge of release. "Mom, I'm close," I gasped. In my throat, "It's okay, honey," she murmured, her voice a low thrum that vibrated through me. "Let go, don't hold back." A wave of pleasure washed over me, my body trembling as I reached the peak of release. As the sensations subsided, a mix of embarrassment and exhilaration flooded through me. Eleanor handed me a box of tissues, a soft smile gracing her lips. "Feel better?" she asked, her voice laced with tenderness. I nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "Yeah, thanks, Mom." She patted my knee affectionately. "You're welcome, Sebastian. I'm glad I could help. Now, why don't you go clean up while I prepare us some dinner?" As I headed to the bathroom, my mind reeled. What had just happened? How had we gone from awkward conversations to this intimate exchange? And more importantly, where would we go from here over the next few weeks? Our unconventional arrangement continued to evolve. Eleanor became more involved in my solitary activities. She offered guidance and sometimes even joined me in watching videos. She never directly participated, but her presence and encouragement added an exciting new dimension to my experiences. One afternoon, as we sat together on the couch, Eleanor turned to me. Her expression was serious. "Sebastian," she began, "I think we need to talk about something important." My heart pounded in my chest. Was she having second thoughts about our arrangement? "What is it, Mom?" I asked. My voice was filled with apprehension. She took a deep breath before continuing. "I want you to know that what we're doing is not typical. Most mothers and sons don't have this kind of relationship." I nodded, a knot forming in my stomach. "Do you want to stop?" she asked. I was surprised to hear her voice so hesitant. "No," she said. "I just want to make sure you understand that this is special and private. It doesn't mean that our relationship has changed. It's fundamentally changed things. I still think of you as my son, and I love you. This is just an unconventional way of supporting you through this stage of your life." "I understand, Mom. I love you too, and I'm grateful for your support, but why are you okay with this?" Most moms wouldn't be. Ella paused, considering her response. "I suppose it's because I remember how difficult. And these feelings can be confusing at your age," she confessed, her voice tinged with a hint of sadness. "I didn't have anyone to guide me, and I made some poor choices as a result. I want better for you, Sebastian." I want you to be comfortable with your sexuality, to understand it without shame and secrecy. Her honesty touched me deeply. Thanks, Mom. That means a lot to me. She smiled, pulling me into a warm embrace. You're welcome, sweetheart. Now, how about we watch something a little tamer tonight? I heard there's a new nature documentary on Netflix. As we settled in to watch the documentary, I felt a newfound appreciation for my mother despite the unconventional nature of our arrangement. Her motivation stemmed from a place of love and a desire to protect me. The weeks flew by, and before I knew it, it was almost time for Dad to return from his business trip. Eleanor and I both knew that our special arrangement would have to change once he was back. Once he got back, the arrangement would have to change. Eleanor came to my room the night before he was due back. Sebastian, can we talk? She asked, her expression serious. I nodded, setting aside the book I had been reading. Mom, what's up? She said, sitting on the edge of my bed. Her gaze met mine. Your father comes home tomorrow, and things will have to go back to normal. I just wanted to check in with you and see how you're feeling about everything. I thought about her question for a minute. I'm okay, Mom. I mean, I'll miss our arrangement, but I understand it can't continue with Dad around. Eleanor nodded, looking relieved. I'm glad you understand, and Sebastian, I want you to know that I'm proud of you. You've matured so much over these past few weeks. I hope that what we've shared has helped you in some way. It has, Mom. I assured her. Thank you for everything. She leaned in and kissed my forehead. She kissed my forehead, a gesture that made me feel warm all over. You're welcome, sweetheart. Remember, I'm always here if you need to talk about anything. As she stood to leave, I called out, Mom. She turned back, her eyes questioning. Yes, Sebastian. I love you. Her face softened into a warm smile. I love you too, honey. Always. The dynamic shifted back to what it had been before, but something had changed between Eleanor and me. We shared a secret and a bond that went beyond the typical mother-daughter relationship in the years that followed. I often thought about that summer. Some might say what happened was inappropriate for me, but it was a time of growth, understanding, and unconditional love. Eleanor's unorthodox approach gave me confidence and self-awareness. I carried with me the lessons she had taught me. Her openness and acceptance had shaped me in ways I was only beginning to understand. Our relationship remained close, though we never spoke directly about that summer again. It was our secret, a chapter in our lives that had brought us closer together, teaching us invaluable lessons about love, trust, and self. I came to see that what others might have thought was unusual was, in fact, a wonderful display of a mother's love and a son's trust. It was a summer that changed everything and yet changed nothing at all.